Well, hello everyone. Today we're going to be doing a little talk about lines. On the one side here, I have the level line portion of some floating, weight forward floating fly line, which happens to be more like, if you were to look for it, like two weight or one weight fly line. Uh, Next to it here we have 20-pound Rio Dacron. You can buy it on reels just like this right here. This happens to be chartreuse. Happens to be chartreuse. Can't even talk this morning. And then over here we have 30-pound braid. And this conversation I want to have about this today is one thing that one of these lines doesn't have in common with the others is that the braid line, when you go to make a cast with it, the power gets lost in the transfer. So when you make your cast, you either have to have something heavy on there so you can flick that object to get your line to go somewhere, or you need to do something to it to where like you have enough uh, weight or momentum to get it going. And braid line falls short on all those things, but it works well in, uh, I guess you could say, when you have your fishing rod and you let go of the line and then you just let it dip, swing out, and then dip into the water. Braid line might work for that, like if you got your bobber on there or whatever. But I don't think braid will ever be good for like Tenkara in any way. It may work good for Euro nymphing at some point, but at the same time, it turns Euro nymphing kind of into spin fishing, where you're casting a lure instead of casting your fly. Or I guess in this case, it'd be casting your line. Traditional fly fishing, you're casting a line that has your flies on it. And that's why there's different weights of fly lines. Two weights can propel really small flies and do really great presentations, but they don't work well with heavier flies or windier conditions. So you go to the other end of the spectrum, like an 8 weight, you can hook giant flies in all kinds of conditions, but one problem is your presentation. It's not gentle when it hits the water, it's a whop, like a splat. You can see the line running all the way out there hitting. But Dacron, on the other hand, you can't cast flies like you can with the fly line with Dacron. Dacron does not work well for doing traditional fly casting, but it does work well in the realm of Tenkara or fixed line, where you need just enough memory and just enough weight in the line to help propel your leader section that has your fly on it and get really good presentation with it. In my opinion, the Rio Dacron, there's probably other brands, but Rio is the one I could find around here. The Rio Dacron 20 pound works really great, and it has just enough weight to it to where you can get the fly to cast out there, but it also has enough like body to it to where you can kind of roll cast it if you have a longer length. And also with the addition of like adding wax, like this is bowstring wax right here, by rubbing that on the outside of that line and working it into it, it does not absorb as much water as it would traditionally, because Dacron is not really a floating material. Once it gets in the water enough times, it starts soaking up water and it'll sink. So it just does not stay afloat permanently, but by adding either some bowstring wax or I don't have any sitting here in front of me, but like some fly line, like some gink, I want to say, or something like that, a gink floating will help it float. But the wax does really great because it actually helps you create a body to the line. So you can get it to roll out there a little better. You can get it to cast better in wind conditions. Waxing the line is like a really great thing. I just recently discovered it myself, uh, found out myself, like because I have a bunch of Dacron that is used for making bowstrings, and it comes pre-waxed. And I was like, this stuff is just different than the normal Dacron, and it's because it's pre-waxed. So that's where I discovered it from. But it's just something that's super simple to do, and the wax is pretty cheap. Like I guess if you wanted to, you could probably just use, I don't know, candle wax or something. But I use this bowstring wax because it gets in real nice, and you can make a thin coat of it on there, just enough to kind of impregnate the material. You see how like it's made it just a little bit stiffer going over my finger there? Let's look at an untreated piece. This is untreated, untreated, and there we're getting into our treated. And it's really, it doesn't stay that way. It kind of, you can, memory falls out of it too. It doesn't always stay the same. But I would say waxing your Dacron is a really great way to make your lightweight lines cast better and also present like smaller flies even. Like I was using it whenever I was trying to present dry flies better. And just the Dacron by itself and my leader I had set up on the end, which is always my step down leader that's 14 to 18-inch pieces of tippet coming from the end of the Dacron. Real quick, I'll tell you about that. The rod, say it's 12 foot, 2/3 of the rod length has to be Dacron. So if a 12 foot, so that's 3, 6, 9, or 4, 8, 12. It's 4, 8, 12. So we need at least 8 foot of Dacron, and then we go 14 to 18 inches of like 0 or 1x, and then 14 to 18 inches of 2 or 3x, and then 14 to 18 inches of 4 or 5x, just depending upon what your rod is. If you have a 5x rod, you want to go 5, 3, 0. Does that make sense? No, it doesn't. If you have a 5x rod, you go 5, 3, 1. So 1x would be what you tie on first, and then 3x, and then 5x. But if you have a 4x rod, it goes 4, 2, 0. And 0 is what you'd have tied on your Dacron up here. But always remembering that never to over rig your Tenkara rod, as in don't run 2x to your fly on a rod that can only take 5x. There's so much stuff to talk about when it comes to lines, and that's why there's always questions about it. In my opinion, stay within the realm of your rod. If it's a 4x rod, 5x rod, 2x rod, each one of those, you have to stay with that tippet on the tip piece. Otherwise, you take a chance at injuring the rod, or I'm not exactly sure what else could happen. Break your rod for sure, though, if you have too heavy of a tippet on there and a big fish takes it. But the thing is with all of it is just trying to maintain a balance of where you can fish the waters you can fish easily and land fish easily too. And that's where another situation comes into hand of where I talk about never trying to run more than 1 foot of your rod length of line. So you got a 12-foot rod, don't go any longer than 13 foot. Also, don't go any shorter than 11 foot. It doesn't, it's not helping you any doing that by running 20 foot of line on a 12-foot rod. And the only time someone would do a situation like that is when someone's trying to fish in a lake and get a little bit longer distance in their cast. Well, situation, you have a short rod and you have a big body of water. You should have a bigger rod to fish a bigger body of water. That's why a lot of the Tenkara rods out there on the market, I don't agree with. Everybody's making a 12-foot rod. I have water next to half a mile away that is 60 to 80 foot wide all over the place. And it's very difficult to fish it with a 12-foot rod because 12-foot rod, 12 foot of line, you're not getting 24 foot of cast out of that. you're only getting about 20, if that. Because you got to remember your presentation and then water depth. There's a whole bunch of things that all come into the ball of wax on it. Longer rods, bigger bodies of water. Shorter rods, smaller bodies of water. It's common sense and easy just stuff. I get lost in all the different conversations that I have about this. And line leads to presentation, and presentation leads to catching fish. It's just as easy as that. Hopefully, this answers a question or questions or creates more questions out there. But thank you guys and gals, for commenting and suggesting different things for me to kind of talk about and try to figure out what exactly is a good topic. So thank you for watching, liking, subscribing, and we'll catch you on the next one.